Hi, everyone. This is Talk Back. I'm Sheila Horvitz, and during the coronavirus time that we have, we've been doing some special shows live on Facebook Live, Channel 14 Norwich, and then it will be on my YouTube channel, and it will be aired on Channel 14 and 1070 in the Comcast TV area. I've been talking to people in every walk of life, in every phase of human existence, because we have to study everything now. And we have a special guest today, someone I've met before, read his book, learned about his very interesting and exciting life, and he is Steven Goldstein. He's coming to us from his home in New Jersey. Hi, Steven. How are you today?
Sheila, it's wonderful to see you and everybody in Connecticut. How are you?
Okay,
and everybody on
great.
Facebook, too.
I know. We see you all the time on Facebook. So we need to introduce you as, I don't know, are you a Renaissance man? I'm looking at your biography. It's unbelievable. You are a mother's dream in terms of going to school and becoming a, quote, professional. You went to Brandeis University. Then you went to Harvard, to the Kennedy School of Government. Then you went to Columbia University Journalism School. I forgot. And then you went to Columbia University Law School. And now, after many different types of careers, which we'll kind of get into, you're studying to be a rabbi. You're in rabbinical school.
My lifelong dream.
What the heck is going on? Why so many of you like to be a perpetual student or what? What's the story?
You know, Sheila, I have had the most blessed life. I feel like the Woody Allen movie Zelig, or maybe Forrest Gump, where they got to do everything they ever dreamed of and found themselves in the scenes of public action. So I've been as you say, I've been a civil rights lawyer. I've been a congressional staffer in both the House and the Senate. I've been a TV producer for news stations and Oprah Winfrey. And now I'm following my dream that I've had since I was age 7 to be a rabbi. And it's my happiest dream yet. And it's really been a blessed life. A lot of people don't get to live every dream they've had. Baruch Hashem, I have.
Okay, great. So are you doing your rabbinical studies virtually now? You're having Zoom classes and things like that?
Yes, and I have to tell you, it's working really, really well. There are students anyway at my school, which is the most fantastic rabbinical school, plug for the Academy for Jewish Religion in Yonkers, where rabbis and cantors study together. And there are a lot of distance students anyway to complement those of us who learn on site. So the school was set up for it, and I have classes on Zoom all the time, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
And thank God I have that, because it's spiritual nourishment.
Okay. I think we're all learning these new ways of communicating, and Zoom is in everybody's vocabulary. We're all getting on. We're all connecting that way, and it's going to be interesting to see when God willing, we're able to meet in person again, if we're going to still try to use the Zoom. I don't want to go out every night. Let's have a Zoom party. You know, it's be interesting to see how we adapt. Right?
You know, I think this is going to change society, because I think there are going to be some situations where people are going to say, wait, that worked just as well by Zoom. Yeah. Why do I have to go to a TV studio? Or why even houses of worship are switching their services to Zoom. They have to. And I'm hearing from some that attendance is even higher. It's not the same as attending in person, but Zoom is reaching people who weren't reached before in all sorts of contexts.
Absolutely. We're going to have a Hadassah Zoom coffee clutch on the Catskills, talking about all our memories of the Catskills, and we're getting people signing up for that next week. So you're right. We may be adapting and changing when we finish up. However, I want to talk to you about two sides of the coin. You have so much humor and so much the glint in your eye when you speak about everything. That's one side of the coin, laughter and humor. The other side is tears, crying, sadness. We have to have both in life, and both are therapeutic in their own way, right? Do you agree with me on that?
So much so, Sheila. And you know, I have to say that the funniest people I know, who include actually stand-up comics who are friends, a lot of the comedy is born out of sadness and pain, and
right.
You learn to laugh about it. It's a coping mechanism, and it has been for me my whole life. And humor's made me a happier person. I think I've endured an awful lot in life. I wish I wish it were as easy as my resume might indicate, but it's not been that easy. So you have to fight for everything. All of us do.
Okay, so I want to go through some of the experiences that you've had and get the funny ones and also the sad ones, the ones that kind of make you cry. But I think before we do that, we need to take notice of what's happening around us. You and I chatted a bit before we went on the air that I've lost someone to the virus, and you told me it was in your experience also, and the people in New Jersey that you know. And you also mentioned very, very, very movingly that you have a brother who's in a group home. So let's give a shout out to all of the people that we've lost. May their memories be for a blessing. And let's give a shout out to the workers, the nurses, the doctors, and all the people that are helping us throughout this, the scientists. And why don't you say a few words along those lines before we have our discussion of laughter and tears?
I'd like everybody out there to know about people with disabilities and what they're going through during COVID. My brother has autism. I'm 57, and my brother, Richie, is 55. I'm almost 58, so I'm 2.5 years older than him. I live in New Jersey, right near the GW Bridge, so I'm practically in New York. He lives in a group home on Long Island, a wonderful group home with a wonderful day program. But the government, which is doing its best, I mean state government, the federal government under Trump is not doing its best. But New York is very lucky to have Governor Cuomo, and my own state of New Jersey is extremely lucky to have Phil Murphy, governor, a friend. But there's been this huge gap in which people with disabilities have really not had their needs met during COVID. And many are at risk for dying, and many have gotten sick. The public spotlight has been on nursing homes. In some states like Connecticut, I think 40%, right, of people of COVID deaths are nursing homes. And we know about the elderly, and let's take care of them. We're even hearing about young people who suffer strokes. But what about people like my brother who are in group homes for whom there is no such thing as quarantining? Richie lives with 5 other people. And without violating the privacy, let's just say that COVID has been in his house and has produced symptoms among workers and staffers. And I'll leave it at that to protect privacy. Where does my brother go? I would take him in my own house in 2 seconds. I live in Teaneck, the COVID hotspot of New Jersey. And if he's asymptomatic but gets me sick, I'm no good in taking care of him. He would need my help, and he would be alone with me. My mom is 81. He can't stay with her. She's at risk. And for a couple of months, when testing wasn't available, and it's still not perfectly available today, Richie, my brother, couldn't get tested because he wasn't exhibiting signs. He was asymptomatic, and he wasn't having fever. But the policy made no sense because, as we know now, people who are asymptomatic, including in his group home, can spread COVID. So Richie should have been tested. And the rules, of course, should have been different for people who live in group home settings. And, I've spoken to medical professionals, and they say, given who has had COVID in his house, there's no way that my brother has not had the COVID bug. They say it's 100%, Stephen. We would know this even without testing. It's whether he's asymptomatic, whether he had a mild case and he has antibodies for it now, but we don't know. And I will tell you, Sheila, that I have, along with my mom, I'm legal guardian of my brother. It has been the most trying time of my life. I'm a social justice activist who believes that I can create change. I like to create service for justice, to use the Yiddish word, troublemaker. The problem is I feel helpless in dealing with my brother. I can't go to hug him. he doesn't really understand what's happening. I say, Richie, everybody has a cold, and you don't want to catch a cold. That's the most that I could explain that he would understand and also not scare him. It's sort of like you would talk to, I suppose, a toddler. And he's the most loving person in the world. And he keeps saying, visit brother in New Jersey, visit brother in New Jersey. He doesn't understand why not. He hasn't been able to get tested. You try to shake the trees of government. Recently, that's been working, but for 2 months, he was exposed to the virus. I have not slept in 2 months, more than 2 hours at a time. I will tell you that if there's a such thing as a nervous breakdown, emotionally, I've come close over worrying about my brother. And I think it's important that people know these things during COVID. You know, I see all these Facebook posts and social media posts on other channels like Twitter. Oh, I'm doing fine. Okay, it's not great. Okay, I'm eating too much. Or I learned a new skill during this time. Well, let me tell you something. There are thousands, actually millions of people like my brother, and millions in their families like me who have been affected emotionally. And this is going to have a mark on me. And I will tell you this, Sheila, it's hard for me not to draw a political line between the political and the personal. You know, I am a Democratic strategist, but I do give credit where credit is due to people of any party. Ohio has a magnificent Republican governor right now, Mike DeWine, who's handling it well. But when the president of the United States, Donald Trump, screws up the country's response to COVID, that affects my brother's life. That affects my life. This is real to me, folks. This is not just a political issue. I'm suffering. People with disabilities are suffering. People who are older are suffering. The most vulnerable people are suffering. How much more will it take before we in this country say, we've had enough of this leadership that has bumbled the worst public health crisis, arguably, in our nation's history?
Okay. Well, you said it very well, Steven.
It's hard for me to keep it together on camera, Sheila, I'll be honest. And as you know, I've done TV a lot, and I appreciate your asking. I mean, you're seeing a raw version of me. I'm like 2 seconds away from bursting into tears, but that's okay. This is really life. This is life.
So I have a couple of responses. Number one, it's okay to be sad, and it's good to cry and get it out. I was going to talk to you about laughter and tears, and you're giving me a perfect example. So there's nothing like a good cry to make you feel better sometimes, not to say it's going to make everything go away, make you feel better. Shedding tears is not a sign of weakness. It's a cathartic experience that really helps us and gets rid of some of the stresses and some of the anxieties. So cry your eyes out. It's good for you. It's good for you to do that. On the other end, the more somewhat political end, yes, why weren't the nursing homes and the group homes tested immediately? The testing in this country has been abominable. It should be a national movement for testing. Instead, we are forced by poor national leadership to have every state fend for themselves to establish the right testing, the right contact tracing, getting the right equipment for their personnel, etc., etc. We should not just have a national strategy. This is a global pandemic. And if we had a different national leadership, I won't even mention, you mentioned the name, for me, he who shall not be named.
Right.
If we had different national leadership, that leader would be leading the entire globe in a global response.
Exactly. And you know what makes no sense? Blaming it on the World Health Organization, which Trump did at the beginning. Look, no government or quasi-government organization is perfect. No private organization is perfect. who the World Health Organization has done more good than bad. And instead of withdrawing from the World Health Organization, we ought to be giving our resources and the best and the brightest and build it up. It makes no sense to blame the World Health Organization as we're tearing it apart.
Well, they had the testing. The World Health Organization had the testing that we could have gotten through them, but instead, the administration wanted private businesses in America to do better with the testing and to do it that way. There have been so many missteps. You're absolutely right. And now we are emasculating the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, which was or is one of the foremost agencies for public health in the world. And I saw their leader on TV. Yes, I saw them
today.
Not today.
Oh my gosh! So if your viewers haven't seen it, you haven't seen it.
I saw yesterday where our Senator Murphy really got the CDC head. He asked him, when are your protocols? When is your plan for opening up going to be published? He said, soon. What does soon mean? That's not satisfactory, Senator Murphy said. And I was so disappointed in the lack of moral courage of that man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's right. First of all, God bless Chris Murphy and his colleague, Senator Richard Blumenthal. You have two great senators, so you're blessed. Before we went on Facebook Live today, Dr. Bright, who's a health official who blew the whistle, he was a whistleblower, he laid out in perfect terms just how much the federal government has screwed up and just how far away we are from a vaccine. Listen, HIV has been around, since about 1980? And it's completely under control. And I know people with HIV and AIDS who live fully wonderful, productive lives, but there is no vaccine to cure it. And it wasn't until about 1995 that there was a combination of drugs there that enabled people to live normal lives. It wasn't a cure, right? So we're talking 15 years to get that, to get HIV/AIDS under control. Sheila, this could be 15 years. Let's hope not. But we have no idea that this is going to be a matter of a few more months. We don't know that. So what's happening? I get that people around the country are getting antsy. I get that people in many places in the country are losing their livelihoods. But the answer is not as simple as reopening the country, because there's going to be a second spike of COVID. Didn't we learn the first time to be ultra cautious about COVID? Are we going to repeat the same mistake again as a nation? And I want to know, what good is it for the economy if we reopen and COVID starts all over again exponentially? If there's 200,000-300,000 more deaths we could have prevented, that's disastrous for the economy. So that's where politics come in. We spend billions and billions of dollars on defense. Right now, we have to defend our nation from COVID. And do we need to throw money at the problem? You bet. Right now, we need to prime the pump toward medical research, but more importantly, pass bills like Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, two of our former great candidates for president. They have a bill providing $2,000 a month guaranteed income during COVID. That needs to pass. That needs to pass. We cannot continue to have corporate socialism where we give big companies tax breaks. I say this as a capitalist. I don't describe myself as a socialist like Bernie does. I am a very progressive democratic capitalist, but we're not going to have any capitalism to save unless the government gets involved heavily. That's the only way to save the America as we know it.
Well, I think there'll be more. I think there'll be more COVID-related laws passed, and hopefully similar type of things that you're talking about. But we're going to just take a few more minutes in this, and we want to go a little bit more to the happiness, fun, laughter kind of part of the equation. I mean, I think the calculation is upon many is that the older crowd, like me, the people who have the comorbidities, the pre-existing conditions, they're either going to stay home or they're going to die. The rest of us are going to go out, open up the economy. Some of us are going to get sick. A lot of us are going to get sick, but most of them are not going to die. Okay. The ones that die, that's okay. That's just like the governor of, Lieutenant Governor of Texas, he said, there are a lot more important things than living. Okay. A lot more important things than
But
living.
Sheila, but he'll call himself pro-life when it comes to reproductive choice.
But that's, I believe that's the calculation now. And now I know Sweden is having an experiment in herd immunity. They're keeping their economy, their whole culture open. They're letting everybody just get it. And they're hoping that that will bring what they call the herd immunity so that people will be immune. And we don't know how that experiment is working out. But I feel that's kind of the calculation. And unfortunately, in this country, with he who shall not be named at the top, we have a situation where everything is politicized. Everything is politicized. No science. It's your side of the science and my side of the science. Climate change, it's your side of the science and my side of the science, depending on what your political party is. That's what's so outrageous. And these scientists who are allowing themselves to be cowed by he who shall not be named, I know they're in a bind, but please resign, do the right thing, speak out, continue to speak out, but, have some courage, have some moral courage.
Sheila,
give your last word on that, and then we'll get on to other topics.
One thing that the current administration has taught us is that we need a lot of government reform to make sure this kind of administration never happens again. There is a Federal Office of Science and Technology. Frankly, I think it should be raised to a cabinet level department. And if not cabinet level department, because that would mean that the president could still fire and control scientists, some sort of independence. But we need to raise science to a much higher level in the government and keep it independent. We can't have a president of the United States hanging the sword of Damocles over somebody wonderful like Anthony Fauci. It's unacceptable. We have to reform the government so it never happens again.
Okay, so let's move on. Do you know that if you have a lot of belly laughs every day or every week, you can add years to your life? That's true. That's scientific. Do you know that? Have you heard that?
It's true. It's true.
Okay. And remember the writer Norman Cousins many years ago? He received a stark diagnosis. He didn't have much time to live. He said, you know what? Mind, body, medicine. The body bears the burden. The mind plays a part in it. He went to bed, and every night he watched all the Marx Brothers movies, and he laughed and laughed and laughed. He survived the illness. He went on to write books about the relationship between laughter and medicine. And I want to just read to you that scientifically, laughter strengthens your immune system, boosts mood, diminishes pain, protects you from the damaging effects of the stress that you're under right now, Stephen. By seeking out more humor and laughter, you can improve your emotional health, strengthen your relationships, find greater happiness, and add years to your life. That's pretty good. Let's have some laughs, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start. I want to go through some of the periods in your life. I want you to tell me a laughter episode, something funny, and then maybe something that maybe brought you to tears. So we have both sides. Both are stress relievers. Both are cathartic to us. Okay. So now growing up, we learned that you and I both grew up in Deepdale, in Little Neck, New York, which was a garden apartment development that was started by Jewish war veterans back in the 60s. What was life like there for you? Give me a funny story. Give me a moving, something not so funny story. What do you have?
Well, I have to tell you, Sheila, to the extent that this is funny, I was always a stirrer for justice, and I always fought for my rights and other people's rights. So I remember, by the way, I was 6 years old, and I played hooky to volunteer for George McGovern to lick envelopes. And it was really fantastic. And I remember leading a student protest in third grade. Who does that? I did. I led a student protest in third grade. I had felt that there wasn't enough integration in our school. The same kind of guy I am today. I think I had those progressive values as a kid. I was the scrawniest little kid. So I remember in kindergarten in public school 187 in Queens, there was some irony when Mrs. Katz, our kindergarten teacher, cast me as the strong man in the circus. I was the shortest kid in the class. They used to line kids up to take class pictures, to take attendance from shortest to tallest. Thank God they don't do that today. But it used to be so stigmatizing. So I was the little kid in front. So they made me the strong man in the circus, and she gave me like no weight. I could barely lift it up. And I wasn't even acting. I was going, Let's see. I was in junior high school. And I remember I was in the school spelling bee, and I won the school spelling bee. An obnoxious little achieving kid I was, precocious. I won the school spelling bee in my elementary school, and I won it in my junior high school. And they gave me a word in the school spelling bee, the teacher who's MC, and the word was kidnapped. That was my first round word. And I was a spelling bee geek, by the way. I memorized thousands of words. And I spelled kidnapped with 2 P's. And the teacher said, no, that's wrong. Please leave the stage. And I said, I am not leaving the stage. You are wrong. And he said, it says it right here in the dictionary. And I said, let me see the dictionary. I looked at it and I said, Mr. Hollander, your dictionary is wrong. And they just looked at me. Stephen, what do you mean the dictionary is wrong? And this is an English teacher, by the way. And I said, I know better. I mean, really, who gave me this chutzpah? Long story short, afterward, I went to the principal's office. The principal pulled out a different dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary, and it showed that kidnapped, the preferred spelling, is actually with 2 P's, and 1 P is the other spelling. And they did the spelling bee all over again, and I won. That's,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I have I have a really funny story from high school where I wanted to play hooky to get tickets to see Barry Manilow at the peak of his popularity. This was 1979. And you couldn't buy tickets online then. So I wanted to go to the city. How would I sneak out to buy tickets? You know, you had to get past the lunchroom staff and all that. I dressed in drag. And it was the first time I ever did that, not too many times since, but I had a teacher who helped me dress in drag, and my English teacher walked me out as if we were like this married couple. And he said, just get me tickets too. And I did. And it was pretty fun. I mean, I looked like Edna Turnblad from Hairspray, if you've seen Hairspray.
Oh, yeah, I love her. Yeah.
I was a sight for sore eyes, but I went in drag and I got out of school. Yeah.
Well, she was stout, Edna. You were probably more slender, but right?
I was, but Sheila, my costume was pretty stout. Like the teacher who's no longer with us, may his memory be a blessing, made me to be a stout young girl. So I was Edna Turnblad, Goldstein.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's go to law school. You know, it's not very funny about law school. I know I went to law school too, like you. And then the first year you're petrified. You don't, after the first year, you kind of figure out you got the ropes. But the only funny thing I can think of from my law school experience was the name of the cafeteria. Do you know what it was?
No, what?
The name of our cafeteria was Jurisprudence.
Okay, that's adorable.
Jurisprudence. So what do you have any stories about law school? Any humor there?
I don't. I should tell you, I only went to law school to make my parents happy. I never wanted a lawyer, and I basically held them ransom. I said, okay, I'll go to journalism school. I'll go to law school at Columbia if I could also go to journalism school. And okay, so that happened. And I did the joint degree at Columbia. And I really never wanted to be a lawyer. And I worked day and night as internships at news stations, and I became a journalist. And this was while I was in law school. No, and law professors would call on me, and I would say, I can't believe I'm admitting this. I would say, I'm not prepared, and I'm here because my parents want me to be a lawyer. So
You actually said that?
in front of like 200 people. And you can call on somebody else, and professors would go, okay. Like, it was really weird to say. Long story short, I've been teaching law either as an adjunct or as an on-staff professor. Life is funny. I never thought I would teach law, but then I became a lawyer in Congress. Life is funny, right? So
yeah, right. That's interesting. Well, of course, your lawyering helped you with your Garden State Equality in that case where you got rights for a gay, was a police officer from the township there.
So I founded New Jersey's LGBT rights organization. And I have to tell you, though I'm a proud and openly LGBT person, I never saw myself as a gay activist. It's just that marriage equality was a burning civil rights issue, and I would have been advocating for it if I were straight, just like I advocate for a woman's right to choose, and I'm not a woman, right? So during one of my battles at Garden State Equality, before there was marriage equality, there was a police officer who protected government officials in New Jersey, and the government officials wouldn't give her domestic partnership benefits. She was dying, and she would not be allowed to get to bequeath her benefits to her partner. Now, with marriage equality, she would have to. And so a young filmmaker with a camera filmed me as I led Garden State Equality in protests on the street and in the halls of power. And that became a film called Freeheld, a documentary film in 2007 that wound up winning the Oscar for Best Short Documentary in 2008. So I was in an Oscar-winning film, and if that doesn't make some future mother-in-law of some guy I meet happy, I don't know what to tell you. So that was 2007, the movie. And then in 2015, Hollywood made it into a feature film, and Steve Carell played me. And he was a last-minute replacement for Zach Galifianakis. I don't know if you know who Zach Galifianakis is.
I've seen him, yeah.
He would have been good. He would have been good. And he plays like crazy people. And when I found out that Zach Galifianakis was cast as me, because he plays crazy people, I go, oh my God, he plays crazy people. And my friends joked, perfect. Okay, so he backed out, who knows why. Steve Carell came in, and the director said, you need to go on set, because like Steve Carell was cast a week or two before he had to go on set, like really just before. And he hasn't really had time to watch your mannerisms, to study you that much. We're sure he's done something, but go on set and don't talk to him, though. Stars don't like to be talked to. They even said, try not to make eye contact. Like, it was strange, right? Turns out Steve Carell was the nicest person in the world. But I'm watching this scene, and I'm watching somebody play me. And if you've never had somebody play you in a movie, it's really unsettling, really unsettling. And Steve Carell was nothing like me. And I don't have a poker face. And he said, Steven, you look like uncomfortable. Am I doing something wrong? And I looked at the director and I said, I'm not allowed to talk. And the director said, no, it's okay. He addressed you. Okay. And I said, Steve, are you doing something wrong? Yeah, everything. and then sort of like Eliza Doolittle and the Rain in Spade, I'm teaching this world famous television and movie star how to act like me. And I'm doing the hand movements and the Queen's accent. And I'll be honest with you, it still didn't come out correct, because Steve Carell wound up playing me like Don Corleone in The Godfather, like, oi, oi, how could you? And I'm just a nice Jewish boy from Teaneck. So if the script says oi, for example, I don't say oi, I say oi.
Oy,
You're
yeah.
killing me. Oi. Why are you killing me? Oi, you're eating my heart out. And so that did not, that I was this a little bit of a screaming, raving lunatic in the movie. And I can't say that, obviously, that I have the smallest personality in the world, as your viewers right here can tell. But it's a little lighter than with the way it was portrayed. I mean, I was really the gay Jewish version of Don Corleone.
Right. So I wonder if anybody would appreciate how someone else portrayed them. I'm not sure. Did other people feel the same way as you did, that the portrayal was not really right? And
Yes, because it was a documentary. A documentary. Certainly, every journalist in New Jersey who had covered me for years thought it was off portrayal.
Okay. So I want to do some more of some of the humorous experiences, but I want to backtrack. I want to start with the book, because the book, The Turn On, talks about how people become captivating, how you learn why people become loved, why some people captivate you, create confidence with you, why you fall in love with them. And you go through in the book everyone from public figures to entertainment figures to figures in industry to every walk of life. So, but to get you to that point, we're going to backtrack to your work in Congress and your work with Oprah, because in Congress, what you did was, you talked about the hearing this morning. What you did was you helped take an issue and you say, who are the best people that will captivate the audience of Congress? So when they sit at that congressional table in the hearing room, the senators, the congressmen will listen and will want to make legislation to help the problem that those people are bringing forth. And you were able, as a congressional aide, to intuitively know who the best people were. So you worked for Congress and you worked for one of the committees and did that. That's really critical. How sometimes you watch these hearings and it's so boring, and so tell us, give us a little bit, if you have some. Were any of the congressmen funny, or were they all kind of stuffed shirts? Were any of the senators funny, or they all kind of stuffed shirts?
No, so I do have a funny story. So I had the blessing to work for U.S. Senator Frank Lautenberg, a blessed memory. He's no longer with us. He passed away at age 89 in 2013, and he was a father figure to me. And I'm working late, and I love the guy, so I would work late he and I would just hang out together. We'd work late in the office. It would just be us. And one time he said to me, do you want to go to a bar? Now, I know that this senator was not a very big drinker, and I'm really not a big drinker. It's just not part of my life. I'm not in a 12-step program, and that would be fine if I were, but it's never been a part of my life. Okay. So I knew he was getting at something. I said, Senator, what do you mean, do you want to go to a bar? And it's a sweet story. And he said, one of your bars. And I said, I said, Senator, I don't even go to one of my bars. like I'm not a bar person. Gay, straight, or otherwise. I'm not a bar person. They freak me out. Okay. So I said, Senator, let's go to a deli. There was a good kosher deli in Washington then. It doesn't exist anymore. So we go to a kosher deli, and he says, I think your bars are in DuPont Circle. This is what he said. I said, okay. And he passes and he says, come on, let's go to a bar. I said, Senator, I got to tell you, what you want to go in as a U.S. senator with me into a gay bar and just hang out? And he said, yeah, why not? And it was one of the most endearing. We did not do it. Yeah, we did not do it.
It would have been scandalous. It would have been right. It would have been all over the newspapers.
Yes. So I have to tell you, in the 1990s, the world was not the same. Today, candidates, at least progressive Democrats, would actually go to a gay bar and tell the press and say, I'm meeting LGBT voters. It's a stop.
Right.
then it was scandalous. And so Frank Lautenberg was this distinguished silver-haired senator,
Right.
and we came very close to going
Did
to
you have some fun at the deli, though? What'd you have? Did you have pastrami? What'd you have at the deli?
and I actually remember what I had. No, do you believe? So it was a great deli. It was called 2J's. It was a branch of a Florida deli that happened to be in Chevy Chase, Maryland, right after the DC border. And I had pastrami and with coleslaw on high, and so did he. And he was very proud of his Jewish heritage, as am I. So we bonded over that, and he was a dad to me, and I miss him
All
so much.
right. Okay. So, is there one hearing that stands out with you had the perfect witness that would explain what needed to be done? And how did you pick them? Because that follows with your book. How did you pick them?
So I should tell you, there was one hearing that I did on gun control, and we got children to sit in the seats of the members of Congress. It was in the House. And as best as I remembered it, many of the children, not all of them, because Congress is all over the country, were from the districts of the members. And it was children sitting in the committee chairs that I put. And they were talking about the effect of gun violence on their lives. And so could you imagine a hearing with children talking and crying about the impact of gun control? It was very meaningful. And
that was before Newtown, right? Obviously.
Well before. Well before. We just don't do anything as a country about gun violence, right? Yeah. It's terrible. And that was great. And so I began to take notes as to the personality traits, as you said, that make great witnesses. I began to take notes as to who makes good talk show guests when I worked for Oprah. And in every job, I began to take notes about what makes people likable. I put it into this formula of 8 likability traits. And voila, HarperCollins published my book last year. It did well. I'm happy.
Okay, so let's turn to the Oprah. I'm sure a lot of people grew up, lived with Oprah for all the years that she was on TV, and she had many, many shows, and you were a producer at one time of shows for her. She didn't produce all her shows, right? She had people like you who got the material, got the guests, right?
TV people have staffs. She's one of the most brilliant people you could ever meet. She has so much talent, but I think people really, they don't overlook it, but among all her other talents, she has instinctive emotional intelligence and overwhelming book smarts. And that's an extraordinary combination. And as a TV producer myself, certainly for part of my career, I would just be in awe of her instincts. She certainly knew television, but it was with she managed to combine relatability and a very heavy intellect, and I admire her very much.
So is there one or two favorite shows that you had that you produced while you were with Oprah?
There is. Thank you for asking. Probably the best TV I ever done was this show. And it was about a woman who was the niece of one of the KKK bombers who bombed the Birmingham Baptist Church in the early 60s. And she turned in her uncle. She was a progressive, and she turned in her uncle. And then she was targeted by the KKK. They wanted to find her and murder her. She went into hiding for several years. And when she came out of hiding, she was a man. And the show was called Afraid for Her Life. So she became a man. And truth be told, this woman, who was a great woman, always had gender identity issues and identified as a man, even though she was born a woman. And of course, progressively, we respect her in today's world as a man. But she always identified as a man during a time where in the South, where I'm sure that wasn't easy. And she really didn't act on it that much. So when she went into hiding, both to come to terms with her own gender identity and fulfilling her natural gender, which is as of a man, and to also hide, she said they were both factors. She became a man. And the audience just gasped because I told the story exactly as I'm telling you, Sheila. I didn't say there was a man and she was once a woman. No, I let it unravel. And we had tape of her as a woman. And then we showed the story of the bombing. And then when the tape of the bombing came up and there was a man, and Oprah said, "There's a man, here. Do you know who this is?" And Oprah said, "This is the woman you just saw." And the audience gasped because it was quite a story. And that show also helped encourage the FBI to reopen the investigation. So that show had it all. It had the effect of really doing great impact for justice. And it was an interesting show to watch. And when you have that combination of both interesting to watch and doing good, you can't beat that.
Well, it's so fascinating because that bombing from the 60s, and with your show, and then you said the FBI got on it. Wasn't it Senator Doug Jones of Alabama, who was an attorney?
1,000% right, Sheila.
He
Prosecuted.
It
is such a sidelight. So Doug Jones of Alabama is a hero to me, and he's an extraordinary senator. And when he ran for the U.S. Senate years later,
it was a long shot. It was a long
shot. But I went down to Birmingham, Alabama, and I volunteered for him for that race. I on my own dime, I stayed. I said, because I knew of him from years before. He is an extremely extraordinary human being, an extremely fantastic civil rights leader.
Right.
And he won because, listen, he deserved to win, but he ran against an insane person, Roy Moore, who was charged with underage awful stuff. And that really played a large part of it. And Doug Jones today is the most vulnerable Democrat. I hope he wins. I hope he wins. But let me tell you something. If he doesn't, and Joe Biden wins the presidency, I really hope Doug Jones is either Attorney General or Supreme Court Justice. There's got to be a place for this extraordinary human being in public life.
So it's so terrific that your show was part of the engine that brought about the capturing and bringing to justice with the attorney Doug Jones on the Birmingham bombing that killed those 3 little girls. Unbelievable story. And you were a part of it. So that's terrific. That's terrific. So I want to close by talking a little bit about different characters and people that fit into your book, The Turn On. So your 8 traits that you need, and then you've got sub traits, but the 8 traits I'm looking at here: captivation, hope, authenticity, relatability, reliability, perception, compassion, and protectiveness. Is that one of them? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you need 8 qualities to be a superstar, charismatic person.
But you don't need all 8.
Don't need all 8. Okay.
Wait.
Who's got all 8? Who's got all 8?
So what I write in the book is you have to have a little bit of all 8, but you don't have to have all 8 in very strong measure, because nobody is perfectly likable. Look, who comes close to having all 8? Pope Francis. I'm a big fan, and I whether I agree or not with every position of the Catholic Church on issues like a woman's right to choose and marriage equality, it's not the point to me in assessing his likability. He is captivating in his efforts to bring the church along. to modern times. He's made some mistakes. It's not been perfect, but he's human. He's not God. He's the Pope. And so he's been extraordinary. The key, Sheila, is that people in public life to succeed have to be the kind of likable that the people are searching for at that time in the world. And compassion and empathy, right now people want that more than anything. And that's why I believe Joe Biden's going to win.
I was going to ask you, what are his likability factors? What has he got?
Well, if we go down the traits, listen, I love the guy. Captivating. Donald Trump is more captivating than Joe Biden because Donald Trump is a captivating train wreck. I mean, he's a train wreck, and it's hard to compete with captivation when you're competing against a train wreck and rubbernecking. I mean, Sheila, by the way, I watch Trump's press briefings, and I'm no fan at all, and my eyes come out of my head. I'm like riveted because I can't believe that there's this human being who is this lying narcissist. I'm just stunned. So look, on captivation, Trump's a freak, so he's captivating. But Biden is going to provide hope. Biden is going to score big on authenticity and relatability. Joe Biden is Joe Biden. Joe Biden is he's a great guy behind the scenes, though, because I could tell you when I was a staffer in Congress, I worked with him and his staff on legislation, and he's authentic. The Joe Biden you see in front of the cameras is the exact same guy you see behind the cameras. And there are very few people you can say about that in public life. Maybe out of all the people in public life in recent years, there might be the smallest gap with Joe Biden as to the kind man he is behind the scenes and the kind man he appears to be. He is really that kind, and he's relatable. And, you know, he makes gaffes, okay, but so do real people. You do, I do, we all do. And he's very unvarnished. Where Trump really fell apart in his likability, I can't say I ever liked him, was, you know, he was going to protect America. I can fix it, and only I can fix it, he said at the Republican convention. And people believed him, like he was the second coming of, if you're a Christian, you would say second coming. If you're Jewish, you would say the first coming. But he portrayed himself out to be this omniscient, omnipotent, I can solve it all and protect you. And he screwed up the country. And that's his biggest vulnerability.
Okay, well, so on the Biden score, he's got the compassion part of it also. And I think one of the reasons that he's winning the nomination, we're not done yet, we haven't had the convention, however we have it, is because I think many of us, I'll say I'm a Democrat, of course. I think many of us felt, you know, it's time for some comfort, some compassion, some relatability with someone we know. We'll have the revolution next time. I think
Right.
That's why we all kind of settled in on him, even though many of us were not there to begin with. But now, of course, we have to support him and support him well. But on you talking about the compassion score, one of the things about, again, he who shall not be named, is what I call the cruelty score, the insult score, and the fact that so many of his followers love that value. They love the hatred toward the other, the fact that he's insulting, that he's giving nicknames, that he's showing complete disregard for human factors, human life, and so forth. What do you say, Stephen, about the tremendous number of people who enjoy that and who find that much more comforting to them than somebody like a Biden? That's what we're up against.
I say don't try to beat Trump at his own disgusting game, and draw the best contrast you can. And to the extent that anybody believes that Hillary really lost, I mean, I'm in the theory that not only did she win the popular vote by 3 million votes, I'm not convinced that the Electoral College, funny stuff didn't happen there. But to the extent that you think she lost narrowly, Biden doesn't have to win over a whole lot of voters. And Hillary Clinton was maligned for using the phrase basket of deplorables to describe Trump's supporters. She actually said more, and her comment was really taken out of context. And I heard the whole comment. What she said was that many Trump supporters, she understood, they're frustrated. Their incomes are not rising, even though the economy might be doing better overall. They want to be heard. They want somebody to hear them. And she said she understands that. And then there were the other people who really got off and got happy on Trump's putting other people down on his racism and sexism and homophobia and Islamophobia. And Hillary said those people were the basket of deplorables. She did not call all Trump supporters basket of deplorables. Let's make that clear.
Exactly. Well, we have to always be careful. They take everything is taken out of context. It's a slogan, a phrase, yeah.
It's the group. We can't win over those kinds of voters who are so enjoying the hatred, but we can, as a Democratic Party, and Joe Biden can try to win over the other voters who are not at all deplorable people, who voted for Donald Trump because they thought he was speaking for them. And he's not. He's not. He doesn't have the economic issue to run on. He ruined the good economy that Barack Obama gave him. And those people, we have a shot to win over some. And Joe Biden should continue to be Joe Biden, and he'll win.
Let's just put your Democratic strategist hat on for a couple of minutes before we come to a close. So I think Joe Biden should very quickly name who he would like to be his running mate, and maybe also add some names for people who he might add to his cabinet, who would be his science advisors, his climate change advisors, and so forth. What do you think of that? And who should he name?
100% he should do that. If I were him, I would probably name a running mate by July 1st at the latest. I'd give it another month and a half or so. It's not like there's going to be the drama of a convention. We're going to have a virtual convention. So there's not even a reason to wait. Listen, the top two, as news outlets are reporting, and from everything I hear, the top two choices are Kamala Harris and Amy Klobuchar. I love them both. I'm a huge fan of Amy Klobuchar. I think Joe Biden should pick Kamala Harris right now. Biden-Harris, it would be a fantastic ticket, and it would win. But if you picked Amy Klobuchar, I'd be thrilled. I think Kamala Harris is an extraordinary person who didn't necessarily have the best presidential campaign. But that doesn't mean that she wouldn't be a good vice president. Because, listen, Al Gore ran for president in 1988 before he was vice president. And he didn't run a great campaign then, and he wound up being a great vice president. So it's possible, and I think Kamala Harris has the talent. I really like Gretchen Whitmer. Who knows whether she would leave her state while it's in
too soon. She's too soon on the national scene. She doesn't have.
I will tell you this. She's a definite presidential candidate material. If she can be patient and serve a full term or two as Michigan governor, she's somebody to watch.
Yeah,
and listen,
right.
I like Elizabeth Warren, and I tend to share a lot of Elizabeth Warren's views. I don't know how she would. I like her a lot. Would she be a plus or a minus on a ticket? I don't know.
She may bring along some of the Bernie people, but we don't know.
But a lot of the Bernie people got very angry at her. There were Bernie supporters and Elizabeth Warren supporters were competing for the same chunk of progressive voters, and it wasn't pretty. So I don't know if she gets.
They still know she would be an influence for some more progressive.
Yes, and she's a great governing choice. Like nobody doubts that Elizabeth Warren could be president, a phenomenal president, right this second.
All right. Finally, I'm going to give you 1 second to answer predictions, and then we're going to come back on the fall and see if you are right. Okay. Will Biden win? Yes or no?
Yes.
If he runs. Okay. Will the Senate go Democratic?
Absolutely, yes. Let me preface, will Biden win? Let me preface, will the Senate be Democratic? If the elections aren't rigged, Biden will win comfortably and the Senate will go Democratic. If the elections are rigged, whether the voting machines are rigged, the Russians get involved to a greater extent that we don't know, it's anybody's call.
Okay.
A fair election means Biden wins and the Democrats win both houses.
And the House will stay Democratic, the House of Representatives? Okay.
Yes, sure.
One last question on that. Will Mitch McConnell be defeated for Senate? That's a tough one.
You know, I'm a Democrat and I advise Democrats. So you don't really say, I don't think a Democrat's going to win. Let me say this. No, he's got a great candidate, the likely candidate against him. Amy McGrath is fantastic. Mitch McConnell has been down this road before, and he's had some really great opponents in Kentucky. And the last time he ran against the Secretary of State, the then Secretary of State, Allison Lundergan Grimes, who was a moderate Democrat, perfect for Kentucky, from a very well-known political family. And I thought she was the perfect candidate, and I thought she would beat him, and she didn't. And it seems that in Kentucky, they really buy the argument that Mitch McConnell has seniority. They don't want to lose it. On the other hand, they just elected a Democratic governor, their last election, Governor Andy Beshear, and he's doing an incredible job. Yeah. It's not a loss.
Very tight, very, very tight. Okay, great. Let's send us off. We'll be on next time with our shows. I want you to send us off with some rabbinical philosophy. Give us a 1-minute final conclusion to this day. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Sheila, it reflects what you said at the beginning. My friends, it's really okay to be sad. I think we live in a culture where we get so anxious about being sad. We're afraid we're going to fall in depression. It's okay. And do me a favor, don't put too much pressure on yourself to achieve, and don't feel guilty. Really, we're human beings. Please be easy on yourselves, okay? That's all I ask. Be easy on yourselves. Come out surviving for the world. Please be easy on yourself.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone. Everyone, be well. See you next time. Bye.